I'm Miranda, a 30-year-old graphic designer, and I've always held on to the belief that love can overcome anything, no matter how cliché it sounds. That belief was truly tested when I married Michael, the most kind-hearted man I've ever known, and came face to face with his mother, Wendy, who was his polar opposite. Wendy, a part-time real estate agent in her mid-50s, had a reputation for being difficult, but it wasn't until I became part of the family that I realized just how challenging she could be. Michael and his sister, Madison, a sweet-natured school teacher, barely concealed their dislike for her. Their father, Santiago, a retired military man, rarely spoke of her. One evening, as Michael and I sat in our cozy living room, I finally worked up the courage to ask him why he seemed so burdened when it came to his mother. He had always avoided the topic, but that night, he decided to open up. Miranda, I love how you always see the good in people, but with my mom, it's complicated, Michael said, his voice weighed down with emotion. What do you mean? I asked, my curiosity growing. He sighed, avoiding my gaze. When Madison and I were kids, she maxed out credit cards in our names. Dad had to step in and clear the debts to protect our futures. And that's just the beginning. She's selfish, Miranda, greedy, even. I was stunned. This wasn't the typical family tension I had imagined. It was far worse. As we planned our wedding, I had little interaction with Wendy. Michael had distanced himself from her years ago, a choice I understood and respected, but after we married, her true colors became impossible to ignore. Her calls for money became more frequent, each one leaving Michael torn between a sense of obligation and his growing resentment. Things took a darker turn after we bought our first home, a place we had worked so hard to afford. For Wendy, however, it was just another opportunity to take advantage. I had no idea then that this was only the start of a series of events that would completely upend our lives. The first year of our marriage was a whirlwind. Michael and I, both dedicated to our careers, worked tirelessly to build a stable future. We dreamed of a life filled with love and success, but Wendy's presence cast a long shadow over our happiness. Her demands for money grew more insistent, each request laced with guilt and manipulation, slowly wearing Michael down. I could see the toll it took on him, the way his shoulders slumped every time her name appeared on his phone. We're barely making progress with our savings, Miranda, Michael admitted one night, his voice heavy with frustration. Every time we think we're moving forward, Mom pulls us back. I squeezed his hand, trying to offer comfort, but words felt inadequate. We were saving for our dream home, but with Wendy's constant interference, it felt like an impossible goal. Finally, after months of cutting corners and taking on extra freelance work, we managed to save enough for a down payment. The day we signed the papers for our house was a mix of joy and unease. While we were thrilled, there was an underlying fear of how Wendy would react, and our fears were justified. When Wendy found out about the house, her greed became even more apparent. She visited us one day, her eyes scanning the space with thinly veiled envy. "This is quite the place you've got here," she said with a sly smile. "Must have cost a fortune. How did you manage this without telling me?" Michael tensed beside me. "We saved for it, Mom. It's our hard-earned money," she scoffed. "Well, don't forget who your family is, Michael. I'm still your mother." That visit marked the start of a relentless campaign. The phone calls became more frequent, and her demands grew more outrageous. Wendy's sense of entitlement seemed limitless, and it began to strain our marriage to its breaking point. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized the gravity of the situation. Wendy wasn't just a nuisance, she was a threat to our future, our dreams, and our peace. Something had to change. Then, in the second year of our marriage, our lives took a devastating turn. Michael was diagnosed with a rare medical condition. The diagnosis came too late, and despite our best efforts, he passed away within months. My world crumbled. Michael was my everything, my partner, my confidant, my best friend. Losing him felt like losing a part of myself. Grief consumed me, threatening to drown me completely. I remember sitting at his funeral, numb and lost, surrounded by sympathetic faces. Wendy's reaction to Michael's death was shocking. At the funeral, she shed a few tears, but her focus seemed elsewhere. Her true intentions became clear soon after. While we were still processing our loss, Wendy approached me with a cold, calculating look. "Miranda, we need to discuss Michael's will and his assets," she said, her tone devoid of any emotion. I was horrified. "How can you be so heartless, Wendy? Your son just died." But she remained unmoved. "I'm his mother. I have a right to his assets." Her words cut deep, but what hurt even more was the realization that Michael's death was just another opportunity for her. The nightmare deepened when I returned home from the funeral. something felt off. A quick check confirmed my worst fears. Someone had broken into our house. Michael's personal belongings, including his wedding ring and our wedding album, were missing. Panic and despair washed over me. Those items weren't just possessions. They were the last tangible pieces of Michael I had left. Who could be so cruel? Then came the call from Wendy, confirming my suspicions. You've had time to grieve, Miranda. Now it's time to be practical. I want the house. Hand it over, or you'll never see Michael's things again, she said coldly. Her words felt like a dagger to my heart. Not only had I lost Michael, but now I was being blackmailed with his memories. Wendy's cruelty knew no bounds. I was left reeling, trying to navigate through my grief while facing the threat she posed. In the aftermath of Michael's death and Wendy's appalling demands, I found a flicker of determination amidst my sorrow. I couldn't let Wendy tarnish Michael's memory or take away our home, a symbol of our love and dreams. It was time to fight back. I reached out to Santiago and Madison, who were equally horrified by Wendy's actions. We gathered at my house, the home Michael and I had built together. The air was thick with grief and anger as I shared Wendy's ultimatum. Santiago, his eyes filled with sorrow, shook his head. I never imagined Wendy could sink to such depths. Michael would have been heartbroken to see this. Madison, fiery and determined, suggested confronting Wendy head-on, but I knew that would only make things worse. No, we need to outsmart her. She's holding Michael's belongings hostage, and I can't risk losing them, I insisted. We spent hours that night brainstorming, crafting a plan to outmaneuver Wendy at her own game. It was risky, but it was the only way to protect what Michael and I had built together. The next day, I called Wendy, pretending to surrender. I'll sign the house over to you, Wendy, just please return Michael's things. Her voice dripped with smugness as she replied, smart move, Miranda, I'll have the papers ready. But Wendy had no idea that the documents she'd be signing weren't what she thought. With the help of a lawyer friend, I prepared a set of papers designed to turn the tables on her. The plan was simple. I'd play along with her demands until the right moment, then reveal the truth. It was a gamble, but it was our best shot at justice. That night, I lay in bed, whispering a silent prayer to Michael, hoping he'd understand and forgive me for the deception I was about to carry out. My heart ached, but my resolve was unshakable. Wendy had taken so much from us. It was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves and determination. I met Wendy at a local cafe, the carefully prepared documents tucked securely in my bag. As expected, Wendy was brimming with confidence, completely unaware of the trap I'd set. She slid the papers across the table, her smirk triumphant. I'm glad you're being reasonable, Miranda, she said. I nodded silently, my hand trembling slightly as I signed the papers. But these weren't the real transfer documents, they were a decoy, meticulously crafted by my lawyer friend. After signing, I handed Wendy the set of documents I'd brought. There's just one more thing you need to sign, Wendy. It's a formality, I said calmly. Wendy, too eager to claim her victory, didn't bother to read them. She scribbled her signature without a second thought, her eyes gleaming with greed. It's done, then. The house is mine. You have a month to move out, she declared, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Little did she know, the papers she'd just signed were the real trap. She had unknowingly transferred ownership of her own house to me under the guise of a legal gift acceptance document. The moment of truth came a few days later at a lavish party Wendy threw to celebrate her supposed victory. I attended, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. As Wendy basked in the spotlight, boasting about her new acquisition, I knew it was time to reveal the truth. I stood up, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Wendy, there's been a misunderstanding. The house is still mine, I said, holding up the document she'd signed. You should have read what you were signing. You just transferred your house to me. The room fell silent, all eyes on Wendy, whose face turned pale as the realization hit her. For a moment, she was speechless. I continued, I have no intention of kicking you out, Wendy, but I won't be bullied or blackmailed. It's time you learned that actions have consequences. Wendy was stunned, her scheme unraveling before her eyes. The guests murmured among themselves, the air thick with tension and disbelief. I left the party with a heavy heart but a sense of closure. I had stood up to Wendy, not out of vengeance, but for justice. Michael's memory was honored, and our home was safe. In the days that followed, Wendy's situation unraveled further. She called me repeatedly, her tone alternating between pleading and threatening, but I stood firm. The house she had coveted so greedily was now legally mine, and I had no intention of giving it up. Wendy's downfall was swift. Word of her actions spread, and she was shunned by those she once considered allies. even Santiago and Madison, who had always maintained a cordial relationship with her for Michael's sake, turned their backs. Unable to condone her behavior, Wendy's life spiraled, and she was left with nothing but regret. With the money from the sale of Wendy's house, I paid off the mortgage on my own home. It was a bittersweet victory. The house was no longer the shared dream Michael and I had envisioned, but it remained a sanctuary filled with memories of our time together. I used some of the remaining funds to take Santiago and Madison on a vacation, a much-needed break for all of us, a chance to heal and bond over shared memories of Michael. As for Wendy, the last I heard, she had moved to a small apartment, her days of luxury long gone. I warned her that if her threats didn't stop, I'd report her to the police. After that, the threats ceased. The community she once manipulated had no place for her anymore. It was a harsh lesson, but one brought on by her own actions. Life has a way of moving forward, even when grief feels all-consuming. It's been a year since Michael passed, and each day is a small step in the journey of healing. I often sit in the garden Michael and I loved, reflecting on the twists and turns life has taken. The pain of losing him will always be a part of me, but I've learned to cherish the memories and embrace the future. Wendy remains a distant figure, a shadow of her former self. I occasionally hear about her struggles, but I feel no joy in her downfall. It's a sad end to a life consumed by greed and manipulation. As for me, I continue to work, create, and live in the home that Michael and I built together. It's a place of love, memories, and now, a testament to resilience. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm ready to face it with the strength Michael always believed I had.